Hello. For the last week or more, the news has been dominated by the events in Afghanistan. I guess that all of us have been shocked by the things we've seen and heard. The speed of the Taliban retaking the country, the panic that caused, the fear, the brutality. It's been one of the most shocking events of the recent past. Of course, it isn't unique. Maybe sometimes we've become desensitized to the horrors that take place around the world. But this event has brought it all back into focus. The world can be a horrific place. Humanity can be so wicked. And it seems to just go on without end. And I'm sure that many people have wondered, where is God in all this? Of course, that's not a new question. It crops up regularly in the Psalms. So today, let me read one of them. Psalm 10. Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak who are caught in the schemes he devises. He boasts about the cravings of his heart. He blesses the greedy and reviles the Lord. In his pride, the wicked man does not seek him. In all his thoughts, there is no room for God. His ways are always prosperous. Your laws are rejected by him. He sneers at all his enemies. He says to himself, nothing will ever shake me. He swears, no one will ever do me harm. His mouth is full of lies and threats. Trouble and evil are under his tongue. He lies in wait near the villagers. From ambush he murders the innocent. His eyes watch in secret for his victims. Like a lion in cover he lies in wait. He lies in wait to catch the helpless. He catches the helpless and drags them off in his net. His victims are crushed. They collapse. They fall under his strength. He says to himself, God will never notice. He covers his face and never sees. Arise, Lord. Lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the helpless. Why does the wicked man revile God? Why does he say to himself, he won't call me to account? But you, God, see the trouble of the afflicted. You consider their grief and take it in hand. The victims commit themselves to you. You are the helper of the fatherless. Break the arm of the wicked man. Call the evildoer to account for his wickedness that would not otherwise be found out. The Lord is king for ever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. You, Lord, hear the desire of the afflicted. You encourage them and you listen to their cry, defending the fatherless and the oppressed, so that mere earthly mortals will never again strike terror. Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? It's a question which God's people have asked ever since that psalm was first written. And when you look at the situation in Afghanistan, why doesn't God do something? Or maybe closer to home, when you have personal problems, why doesn't God do something? It's a natural enough question, but Psalm 10 doesn't ask why God doesn't do something. It's not some abstract question, it's more personal. Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? This is real, heartfelt prayer of someone who knows God and who knows what God is like and can't understand why God seems to remain distant from the trouble. And I guess that if that's the only thing we learn from Psalm 10, it will be worth it. When we look at the suffering of others or our own suffering, abandoning faith is no answer. It achieves nothing. At the same time, pretending that everything's fine is no answer. Everything is very obviously not fine. But questioning faith, wrestling with God over the situation, that's what this psalm teaches us to do. And this psalmist is painfully honest about the situation. In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak. It's what we see happening in Afghanistan and so many other places. Maybe you feel as if it's happening to you. And the psalmist tells God exactly what is going on, not because God doesn't already know, but to be honest about how bad the situation is, how ruthless the enemies seem. As with many psalms, if it ended there, it might be some sort of therapy, but it wouldn't really change anything. But having been honest about the situation, the psalmist turns to intercession. Arise, Lord, lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the helpless. Just agonizing over what we see on the news is no answer. Even if we can't understand why God is allowing it, we can still cry out to him on behalf of those who are suffering, especially our Christian brothers and sisters. Arise, Lord, lift up your hand. And we pray because we know what God is like. But you, God, see the trouble of the afflicted. You consider their grief and take it in hand. The victims commit themselves to you. You are the helper of the fatherless. The fact that God is allowing all this to happen doesn't mean that he doesn't care. He does care. He will act as his people cry out to him. And one part of the answer is that the suffering we see will never be the last word. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land, which means that the time will come when mere earthly mortals will never again strike terror. That's the hope that we hold on to, both for ourselves and for other Christians around the world who are suffering. But even though that day of justice might still be in the future, there is one thing we can depend upon now. You, Lord, hear the desire of the afflicted. You encourage them and you listen to their cry. Or as the ESV more literally translates it, O Lord, you hear the desire of the afflicted. You will strengthen their hearts. We can't presume that in answer to our prayers God will overthrow the Taliban, but we can be sure that in answer to our prayers God will strengthen the hearts of his people who are suffering, that they will be assured of his love, that he does have them in his hands. Psalm 10 might seem distant from our personal experience, but it can help us to pray for our Christian brothers and sisters who are going through persecution. We can use these words on their behalf, and we can pray that despite all that is happening, they will know that the Lord is King, and that he will strengthen their hearts and give them hope.